Hi, and welcome to my SAS Global Forum 2020 virtual session. My name is Heather Burnett. I work for Teradata Corporation, and today I'll be talking about best practices for enabling SAS analytics in the cloud at scale. I work for Teradata on the SAS and Teradata partnership, and I'm lucky enough to work at the SAS headquarters in Cary, North Carolina. I get to work with R&D, QA, and SAS tech support. And as part of my job, I get involved when joint SAS and Teradata customers have issues. And as our customers have started to move into the cloud, we have noticed some lessons that we have learned and some best practices that we can follow to help all of our customers make a smooth transition into the cloud and to get the most out of their system once they get there. So the first set of tips I want to talk to you about is how you would set up SAS in the cloud so that you have the best performance possible. And the best tip that I can give you to start off with is to make a plan for your whole ecosystem. And that means to understand that SAS is actually part of a larger analytic ecosystem that you have. You may have other applications that you run. You definitely have data that SAS uses that could be in SAS data sets and a database. You have workloads that you run associated with SAS that could also be open source programs that you have like R and Python, and there's also security and authentication involved in that as well. And if you would like to move SAS to the cloud, there are implications because of the dependencies that will affect these other things that you need to be aware of before you make the move to the cloud. So the suggestion is to perform a complete inventory so that you know everything that is in your analytic ecosystem. Do a workload analysis, do a sizing assessment. Make sure you determine all of those dependencies, how those pieces are connected and how they'll be affected. With that information, you'll be able to determine what you want to move to the cloud, what's going to be staying on-premise in your data center, and how and when you want that migration to occur. Now, I understand that that may seem like a daunting task, and you shouldn't do it alone. We recommend that you seek outside expert advice, and getting help from these experts will definitely save you time, money, and headaches in the long run. And at a minimum, you should reach out to your SAS account team. If you're a Teradata customer, reach out to your Teradata account team or your database vendor. And you need to do research to determine where it is that you're going to place your SAS system. Which public cloud are you going to put it in? AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and reach out to them as well. They have lots of experts that can help make this transition successful for you. So now that you've made a decision of what is moving to the cloud and how you plan to get it, you need to know where you're going to place it in the cloud. And the experts will have lots of advice for you, and you should definitely listen to the advice that they have, but it's important to educate yourself in this process too. So that's part of what I'm going to be doing is educating you on this. Because SAS uses so much data and the data is so important, we recommend that you co-locate everything as much as possible. The further away your analytic components are in the cloud, the longer it's going to take them to communicate. Anytime SAS sends a request, it's going to take longer for the other component to receive it and to answer. That is called latency. And there is increased latency in the cloud. So for an optimal scenario, what you want to do is to pick a single cloud vendor. Don't put one SAS system in AWS on the East Coast and another SAS system in the West Coast on Google and try to connect the two and expect that you're going to have the same performance that you have in your on-premise data center. It won't work that way. So again, for optimal scenario, pick a single cloud vendor, pick one geographic region, and place all of your SAS components, all of your data, all of the other pieces, any of your open source, R, Python, all of those jobs, place them all in the cloud in the same location. Okay, so if we take a closer look at this, this is the actual architecture that we suggest that you use to link up SAS and Teradata. Now, if you've heard about Teradata within the last couple of years, you've probably heard of Teradata Vantage. Historically, Teradata was a traditional data warehouse. It was located on-prem, but as times evolved, so does Teradata. So Teradata has evolved more into an analytic platform But if you have Teradata database version 1620 or higher, believe it or not, you have Teradata Vantage. So Teradata is available right now. Of course, you can still get it on-prem and in a Teradata hosted cloud, but it is available in Azure and AWS. And coming next quarter, Q3 2020, it will also be available on Google Cloud. So all of the major cloud platform vendors that you know and love, Teradata Vantage is available for you there. I also like to point out that Teradata Vantage has a free developer version. I use that personally for a lot of my own projects that I have going on, anything where I need to spin up an instance of Teradata quickly and easily. Teradata does not charge for that. You do have to have an AWS or an Azure account, and if you have any storage, of course, AWS and Azure will charge you fees for those, but Teradata does not charge you at all for the software. I will stop just now and mention that in the paper that I wrote that's associated with this presentation, it has links for all of this and many other tips. So you're welcome to get the direct links rather than going out, or you can just go directly to AWS or Azure Marketplace and find those yourself. So when Teradata is created in the cloud, all of the nodes are placed within one VPC. That stands for Virtual Private Cloud. In Azure, it's called a VNet, a virtual network. And all of those are tied to an availability zone. An availability zone just means that all of those things are going to physically reside in one geographic location. It is one single data center in AWS. So you are guaranteed that those nodes are going to be physically close together as possible. SAS actually recommends that you do the same thing. You put all of your SAS components together in one VPC or VNet, tie them to an availability zone. And of course, we recommend that you put Teradata and SAS in the same geographic region. Now, Azure goes one step further, and you can also have, besides the previous configuration, you can get one more step of optimization and get it placed within the same virtual network that provides just a little, one additional layer of optimization if you have Azure. Okay, so now that you know where everything is going to be located, it's important to understand that the default networking speeds in the cloud are probably not the same as what you're used to having in your data on-premises data center. And the SAS Performance Lab recommends a minimum connectivity speed of 10 gigabits per second between each of your SAS nodes and also between your SAS nodes and your data sources. In order to get something like that, you are likely going to have to invest in some high-speed connectivity options. This is something that we see very often with our customers. And so I've gone ahead and I'd like for you to spend some time educating yourself. We know that it's not a one-size-fits-all. Every company is different. And so the solution that works for you might not work for another company. But I gave you some suggestions to go ahead and get you started. Now, these suggestions for AWS and Azure are private link. For Google Cloud, it's VPC network peering. And all of these connectivity options that I've provided for you, they give you additional speed, but they also have increased security as well. So that's another thing I know that people worry about in the cloud. And so your only consideration is not just connecting all of your components in the cloud, but it is also connecting your cloud environment back to your on-premises environment. Now, there will always be pieces that can't move to the cloud. Well, not always, but in most cases, we found companies can't move everything there. And for the things that can't move, it's important to have a private, dedicated, high-speed connectivity connection between your cloud and your on-premise environment. Again, that gives you increased performance, and you definitely need it for security. So for AWS, I recommend Direct Connect. For Azure, ExpressRoute, and for Google Cloud, Cloud Interconnect. Okay, now that I've given you some ideas and some suggestions of how to set up your cloud and SAS in the cloud so that it would provide some optimal performance, you might think that you're done. But actually, that's not the case. running things in the cloud may require a shift in your thinking of how you run your jobs. And so I'm providing a list of technical performance tips for you to use when you're writing programs that are writing or running programs that are going to be run in the cloud. So the first one is you might have to rethink how your analytic workloads are being run and think, are you running your SAS jobs in an optimized way? You probably have a lot of SAS jobs that you run regularly. And in fact, it may just be you decide to run those jobs on a whim. Oh, I think right now I'll run this SAS job. And when everything is in your data center very close by, that can be fast and quick and easy to do. But when you're talking about sending data over a wide area network, remember again, with the cloud comes increased latency and potentially slower networking speeds. Even if you've set your environment up correctly, there are still hiccups in the network and things like that that you might encounter. So it's good to think about, do I need to run my SAS jobs in a different way? So I thought it would be fun to look at this little example of what if you had a large group of people that you wanted to get across the country, and maybe think about how this relates to your SAS jobs. Does it make sense to send one person on a plane at a time? Or does it make sense to send a small plane if you have a huge group of people that needs to run? Would it be better if you had multiple large planes running at the same time? And how this might apply to your SAS jobs are, if you have a small job that only requires moving a small amount of data, then maybe you have 4 or 5 of those that you need to run. Well, rather than doing one at a time serially, maybe you should run those all at the same time. You could also talk to IT and determine maybe there are things that you'd like to schedule for off-peak hours. There are things that could be run overnight and they'd be ready and waiting for you in the morning. The one other thing I do want to mention is what happens if you try to run all of your SAS jobs, or what happens if we tried to send all of the planes in the air and have them all land at the same time? Of course, there's going to be contention. So again, think about scheduling, and obviously you don't want to run everything at the same time because of scheduling and blocking, but it is something to consider. You can definitely run more than one thing at a time. Okay, the next tip is to limit the amount of data you are going to transfer. You should be aware that when you're transferring data in the cloud, it now will cost time and money. This used to be free. You could move lots of data around in your data center, and it didn't cost you anything. You might have heard the expression that getting data into the cloud is cheap, but getting data out of the cloud is expensive. And that is actually very true. If you set yourself up so that you have your data and your SAS instance located close together in the same geographic region within a single cloud vendor, that's going to be the best case scenario. It's going to be the least expensive. But still remember that it takes time to move that data. The more data you move, the farther you move it, the longer it's going to take and the more it's going to cost. So as you write your SAS jobs, keep those things in mind. Another tip is to run as much as possible in the database. SAS and Teradata have been partners for over a decade and have created a list of SAS products that are integrated into the database to help push more processing into the database. And this is a list of those products. Some of them take advantage of what is called the SAS embedded process. Teradata was built with an MPP architecture. For those of you that are new to that term, it's massively parallel processing, which means that Teradata has lots of Teradata nodes that process huge amounts of data, and it does it all in parallel. The SAS EP is SAS software that gets installed on every Teradata node. So any of the products that use the SAS EP are actually running SAS code on every node in Teradata in parallel. Pretty cool. So one of the best ways to take advantage of all of the benefits of running things in database is to do your data discovery and your data preparation in the database. to do all of this analytic work where the data resides. There's a couple advantages of doing this. One, you don't have to move the data, right? Of course, that saves us time and it saves us money. We've learned that. But also, Teradata customers generally have they work in industries that have governance issues. And so keeping the data in one place means that they are more compliant with those regulations. And so if that applies to you, that's also one thing to consider. But these are just a couple of coding examples in ways that you can run some of the stuff, do your data preparation in the database. I want to point out just two things really quickly. One, there is an option called DBI Direct Exec. And that's an option that you can put on your SAS programs, and it just makes sure that SAS pushes as much as possible down into the database. For example, you can see there's a PROC means right below it. So PROC means, PROC freak, those are things that you would write in normal SAS programs. And instead of pulling all of the data out of the database to perform a PROC means, that would get pushed down into the database. So you save the time of doing the data transfer, and it increases the performance of that activity by quite a bit. And of course, Teradata runs on SQL, so you are more than welcome to write your favorite SQL statements. And PROC SQL, this is a great way to do aggregations and transformations of your data before to do any of your data discovery and data prep. Another thing that you can do is to score your SAS models inside of the Teradata database. Again, this takes advantage of the SAS embedded process that's installed on all of the Teradata nodes. So it is SAS code that is being run in the Teradata database. And you can see there's a way that you can do it in SAS 9 and also in SAS Viya. So we know it's not possible to run everything with SAS inside the Teradata database. So when you're writing your programs and you realize you do have to transfer data, we'd like for you to do it in an efficient way. And there is a product called the SAS Data Connect Accelerator, which allows you to do this. The default way is, as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, is a serial data connector. What this requires is that the CAS controller requests data from the Teradata database. The database returns it to the CAS controller, and the CAS controller distributes all of the data to the CAS worker nodes. And then it can continue on with any of the processing that needs to be done. Using the SAS Data Connect Accelerator, each individual CAS worker can connect to individual Teradata nodes, and you can upload all of the data that's being requested in parallel at the same time. So you can imagine that's quite a bit faster. So if you are performing this, this is the code that shows you how to do it. You can see kind of in the center, it says data transfer mode equals parallel. And that is how you tell Viya that when you do your CAS actions, that you want to do your data transfers in parallel. So this example is a parallel data load. You can do the same thing, and you can save data to Teradata as well. So you can do loads and saves. And in the SAS log, you'll be able to see that the Teradata load was performed successfully. You can see it says it performed a parallel load table action, and it used the SAS Data Connect Accelerator for Teradata. So that's how you can know for sure that it did it the most efficient way possible. It is, so if you don't have Viya, of course I didn't want to leave you hanging. This is how it works for SAS 9. It's not the exact same, it doesn't work the same way, but there is a Teradata product called the Teradata Parallel Transporter, TPT, and in your data set options, you can set TPT equal to yes, and depending on if you are exporting data out of Teradata, loading it into SAS, you can use fast export. If you have a SAS data set that you want to save to Teradata, then you can put TPT equals to yes, fast load equals to yes. And again, you can look at the logs to ensure it is performing using the correct thing. Okay, well, thank you very much. This was just a summary slide to talk about all the tips. I appreciate you listening to this. Have a good day. Bye.